1 in 5 Australians have a disability. So if you have a group of 5 friends and none have a disability, why does your group discriminate? If your workplace has more than 5 employees, why does your work discriminate? What's going on here? If you look around your life and you're truly honest with yourself, is there a person in your life with disability that is your equal?
Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we record this podcast, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respect to elders past and present. Today, I'm talking to writer, speaker, and disability rights advocate Elly Desmarchelier. Elly has cerebral palsy and is also autistic and ADHD, and she gained viral traction when she became the National Spokesperson for the Defend Our NDIS campaign during the 2022 federal election, something that is such an important topic and such a current topic in our media at the moment, and something which desperately needs to be spoken about, and that she is doing brilliantly and so incredibly boldly. Elly joins me now. Elly, hello.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh my God, yay. I wish I had a chance to talk to you earlier when we were both at the All About Women Festival, but we're here now.
We missed each other. We were passing votes.
Literally, the amount of times I literally saw you from a distance and I was like, oh, that's Elly. And then it just never happened. I was like,
no, it didn't.
And like
it was meant to be so that we could catch up here.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Have it all come out in front of heaps of people. Perfect.
Absolutely. What's better than sharing it amongst friends?
Oversharing. We love to see it.
Yes.
As a bit of an icebreaker, I love to ask my guests as the first question what they're fixating on at the moment. And I know that you are ADHD and autistic as well, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. Great. Tell me your hyperfixation.
Well, my all-time fixation, my constant fixation is the news. Like, I will never stop fixating on the news. I love the news. There's something so reassuring about the fact that it'll be on every half an hour, and that it starts with the breaking news, and then it'll go to sport, and then it'll go to the weather. Like, it's so comforting that I know what will happen with the news, even though it's supposed to be the thing that you never know what's going to happen.
That's so fascinating, because I'm the opposite. I'm like, I can't watch the news because it's always changing and it's always hectic stuff. I'm like, this is too overwhelming. There's too much going on.
No, it is so much. I can sit there watching ABC News 24 for 48 hours straight, and it could be the same headlines over and over again, and I would love it. But can I say I've fallen into a TikTok spiral? It's really nice. We have a bit of a tradition in our house now, a TikTok tradition, which my partner has a bit more time during the day to look at TikTok than I do. Like, I'm a nighttime TikToker. And she sends me TikToks throughout the day so that when I go to look at them at night, she's curated me like a TikTok playlist.
Oh my God, your
all
own
the best
little personalized For You feed. That's so cute.
I don't even have to look through all the terrible ones to find the good ones. She's made them for me.
Oh my God, that is so wholesome. What a perfect love language. So, Elly, you are a writer, a speaker, a disability rights advocate, and proudly queer. I would love to know what moment there was, if any, that sticks out for you when you knew that you wanted to become a full-time advocate.
So it was actually last year, not that long ago.
Wow.
So last year I was the National Spokesperson for the Defend Our NDIS campaign. We were just about to launch the campaign outside Parliament House. Mm-hmm. And the problem is at the time the Morrison government was cutting plans, was looking like they were going to try and reintroduce independent assessments. We were going down a really bad path.
Yeah.
People were in the AAT trying to fight their cases for 10 months. It was really bad.
Yeah.
And we really needed a very, very good NDIS story that encapsulated that to launch the campaign. But the problem was everyone was really afraid of retribution. So no one wanted to come forward at that point in order to share their story in case they got their plans further cut or it made trouble for them at the AAT. So it wasn't until we were really struggling, and I was talking to one of the campaign managers, and he was saying, we're really struggling to find a story. And I said, they did cut my NDIS plan. And he goes, oh, yeah. And I go, I needed 12 months of catheter bags, and they only gave me funding for 6 months. And when I went to them and said, what's going on? They said, oh, well, you can just wash them and reuse them.
What?
Yeah, it was horrendous.
Holy shit.
And just to be clear, I had only just gotten the catheter put in. This was the first time I've ever used a catheter. Like, it was incredibly vulnerable time for me. Like, I just needed catheter bags. Like, I didn't think this was going to be a big thing. Anyway, so I only got 6 months of a 12-month plan for catheter bags. And he went, like, that is the story. That's the story.
Yeah.
And so we worked with the project to put the story together, and it ran for 7 minutes on the night before the launch. And it's one of the most personal, vulnerable stories I've ever done in my entire life. But the next day we met with Anthony Albanese and Bill Shorten, and Anthony Albanese walked right up to me and he said to me, I saw you on the project last night. We're going to get the scheme back on track. And I just remember going, my voice, my story, this is powerful. And I want more people to be able to do this, but they can only do it if they see me doing it or someone else like me doing it. And so I just kept going. I just kept showing up to media after media after media during that election. The NDIS was one of the top issues at the federal election, surprisingly. Usually it doesn't even play a part, but we actually, because the community came together, because the community rallied to defend the NDIS, we actually were able to make it one of the top issues of the whole election, which means, ignore disabled voters at your peril. But it wasn't until that story where I had to be so vulnerable about my own needs and about what had happened to me that I realized I need to do this full time. I need to be an advocate full time. This is where I need to be.
Obviously, the NDIS, for those who aren't aware of it, or I guess not even aware of it, I would love for you to kind of explain a little bit about how and why the NDIS is so important, because it's something that I'm on, it's something that a lot of disabled people are on, and a lot of people are trying to defund it and don't understand why it is so important that this is something that does have more funds and that can be accessed by more disabled people. Can you give a little bit of an insight?
Let me be very clear. It's something that's currently under threat.
Yes.
The opposition leader Dutton only recently said that we should cut the NDIS to pay for submarines.
Yes.
So,
I heard that the other day, and oh God, I was freaking ready to go in arms about it.
I know. So, we think we won that battle, but it's actually going to be a constant campaign.
One that we're constantly fighting for.
Correct. So, I think it's important to understand why the NDIS is so important. You need to go back to before it began. So, the NDIS is 10 years old, and before the NDIS began, all of the disability funding came from the states, and that meant that in every state it was different. But it meant that there was only a certain amount of money, and once that money ran out, it didn't matter if there was 30,000 people still on the list that needed help, they just didn't get help. So we had cases in Australia, thousands of them, where people with disability were going with one shower a week or could only eat one meal a day. And that because it wasn't individualized care, it was standardized packages that you got, and you had to be grateful for what you got, and you were lucky to get it because there weren't that many. And once the funding ran out, it didn't matter if you really, really needed it in order to shower or eat or do really basic things. There was no more money and you weren't getting it. So we had a system in Australia that meant people with disability were going without incredibly basic things like showering and eating. So Julia Gillard, with the help of Bill Shorten, I should say, he was the parliamentary secretary for the NDIS way back 10 years ago, created the NDIS, which the goal of the NDIS was to, instead of having that fragmented system, it was going to be nationalised, so everybody across the country got the same treatment. But instead of it being standardised packages where, you know, you got $50,000 and you're going to be grateful no matter if you needed that much money or you needed more or you needed less, you actually got the individualized support that you needed in order to live a life of your own choosing. It was about choice and control. It was about you actually saying, what kind of life do you want to live and what supports do you need to get there?
Yep.
And the NDIS would fund that. That was the fundamental basis and foundation of the NDIS. Now, it's taken up to 8 years to roll it out across the country. So we are really only in the first few years of it being actually nationwide.
Yeah.
We need to remember this is still a very new scheme, which is why I get incredibly frustrated when people are talking about cutting it because of cost blowouts or because of overspending. We need time to be able to, you know, there are parts of the NDIS that aren't working for people with disability, and we need time to be able to fix those parts because it's new. Of course, it's not all going to be perfect at once. But if we're constantly fighting for it just to exist, we can't fight for it to get better.
Yeah, Elly, you are such an incredibly strong person and have such a passion for this. And I think anyone listening can hear your passion, and rightful passion, because it is such an important thing. How did you find the strength to be able to talk about this sort of stuff with this much passion and be the forefront of this? And have you always had that strength, or how did you find it?
I found it through talking to other people with disability.
Amazing.
I get my strength through talking to other people with disability. So, for example, during the campaign, I definitely got my energy and my mojo through, we did 10 virtual town halls in 5 days all around the country, and speaking to thousands of people with disability and hearing their cut stories and knowing how much they needed the NDIS as much as I did. Mm-hmm. That's what fuels me. That's what keeps me going.
Yeah.
That's the passion I need. Knowing that there are thousands of people with disability who live in segregated housing, who work in segregated workplaces where they earn $6 an hour, knowing there is thousands of people with disability who only ever get to go to segregated community activities and don't get to ever be included in mainstream society. That's what fuels me. Knowing that we need to change huge structural systems in this country in order for people with disability to be equal. That's what drives me. But it also helps that my autistic obsession is things like the news and politics and knowing how it works and knowing how to drive change. I love these things. I've loved them since I was a little kid. I was the strange little kid who at 10 was watching The West Wing. But I always had a feeling of it's that injustice feeling. If there's any injustice, it grinds me. And I know a lot of people who are neurodivergent, the social injustice.
It's such a massive thing for us because we can't understand the fact that this is a simple solution. This is a simple issue. Fix it.
Yes.
And
yes, and it's so easy to fix.
So easy to fix.
We can always see how easy it is to fix.
Exactly.
And so I found the pathways to how you fix it. And I thought if I know how the pathways to how to fix it, then it's going to be even easier. But let me tell you, you still need broad community support, and you still need a community that's going to come together and campaign.
Yeah.
And I'm just simply pushing my way in. I'm just being extremely pushy, and I am simply passing on what I am hearing from other people with disability, which is, firstly, the NDIS is not to be touched. It can be reformed, it can be worked on, it can be made better for people with disability, but it is not there to fill your budget whole. It is not there as your kitty in order to every time another program needs some funding, you just take it from the NDIS.
Yeah.
Because there will be consequences. And this is what the disability community must get really, really good at, is making clear to whoever says it, whether it's Dutton or the government or whoever it is, if you touch the NDIS without consulting us, we will make sure you have political consequences for that. And I think we're getting there. We made that very clear in the federal election last year, and we made an impact in that election. We got a change of government, and I think that change of government meant that the NDIS was protected. But we still have a long way to go. Nothing is guaranteed.
And nothing can continue to be guaranteed unless we are continuing to have that seat at the table. It's a group effort. And the thing is, we haven't been given voices for such an immensely long time, mostly because those voices either were being taken away from us, we thought we weren't allowed to have the voices, or those voices were being taken and replaced with someone else's voice speaking for us, usually speaking for us in a way that wasn't actually helping us at all and was only benefiting other people. So now that we're actually able to be in the room and that someone like you is in the forefront of that change and ensuring that those voices are heard and ensuring that it's not just our voices, it is the voices of so many people who have been desperate and waiting and needing a voice in order to survive and in order to exist for so long is so immensely important.
Yes, it's vital. It's vital. And it's happening. It's happening.
Yeah, 100%. Honestly, I think this is going to be the most important podcast episode that we have because, holy shit, people need to hear this.
Okay, good. I'm glad. I hope I'm not too serious, Sally,
No, I
for
love
you.
it. Please be serious because this is
All
a
right.
serious topic, dude.
Yeah, it is, but campaigning can also be fun. Like, working together as a community can also be... It can be building a family. Community is family. The disability community is my family. So this is also, there is joy in this. So I hope people don't just take from it a seriousness, which means that it is hard work, because it fills my cup every single day. There is joy.
I'm sure there's a lot of advocacy burnout as well. How do you look after yourself and how do you make sure that while you're fighting for such an immensely important cause that you are still looking after yourself in the same time?
Well, if I'm being boldly me in this answer, the answer is I'm still learning. I'm not very good at it. It's hard. Saying no to things is incredibly hard because you feel like you're saying no to an opportunity to get the word out.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
And so I'm not very good at it. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to get the balance right. And at the moment, I'm currently just pushing and pushing, and then my body has complete burnout, and then I rest, and then I push, and then I have burnout. So anyone that's doing that, you're not alone. It's actually really common. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but I think it's more common than we allow ourselves to talk about.
Yeah.
And I'm not an expert in making it better yet. I actually think that's one of the areas I have a lot of growth to do in my autism ADHD journey, is that I feel best when I'm working and when I'm achieving, and I've got that achievement and mastery feeling going. And so I like working, but with my physical disability and everything else, it's not always healthy to be working constantly. And so getting that balance right is something I have not been able to achieve.
And I'm going through the exact same thing, and I feel like it's a very common thing, I guess, for people that are, first of all, in the public eye a lot and are putting themselves in the public eye a lot as an advocate. And I think the thing that I'm trying to learn to do now is understand that not every single fight I have to be at the forefront of, and I'm allowed to step back and let other advocates take charge. Like, I'm allowed to hand the sword over sometimes. And I think learning that and learning that it is okay to step back, and sometimes looking after my mental health is actually also looking after the community, is such first of all, such a difficult lesson to learn. Like, I have to remember to do that every single day, but is also such an important lesson to learn, that you can't look after everyone else until you're learning to look after yourself as well.
It's so true, but it's so easily said and so hard to do.
So true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to know, when do you feel your boldest?
I do feel my boldest in front of an audience, I've got to say.
Yeah.
When I've got people's attention and I have an audience that's, you know, ready, well, has no other option but to listen to me.
Yeah.
I feel ready to go. That's not to say I don't get very nervous. I get nervous beforehand, but once I'm on stage and I'm in front of an audience, or I'm in front of a TV camera and it goes live, I feel bold.
Yeah.
I feel bold because I feel like this is my opportunity to communicate a message that people with disability need communicated, or I feel it needs communicated. And I have learned, particularly over the last year, that there's no point in just making people feel comfortable. There's no point in being palatable. Mm-hmm. That actually putting people in some state of discomfort is actually the best place to be, without, you know, pushing them so hard they want to run out the door.
Nothing grows inside of a comfort zone.
Yeah. And so I've just been starting to be more recently quite upfront about, you know, even if it's a hilarious panel that I'm on, you know, I'm not afraid to sit there and go, okay, this is all very funny, or, you know, we've had a good laugh, but let's not forget let's not forget that the unemployment rate for people with disability is double that of the national average.
Yeah.
And it hasn't changed in 31 years. Like, 31 years is longer than I've been alive. It's ridiculous. And the point that I have been making recently, which I feel like is the boldest and has been pushing people the furthest. So how we're going to get equality for people with disability is by ending segregation in all its forms.
Yes.
We cannot have segregation and have equality for people with disability. So segregated workplaces, segregated housing, segregated education, segregated community activities. We've got to end them all. And all of that is going to take years of transition and hard work. But what could change tomorrow is this conversation that I've been having with audiences, which is 1 in 5 Australians have a disability. Mm-hmm. So if you have a group of 5 friends and none have a disability, why does your group discriminate?
Wow. Yeah.
And if your workplace has more than 5 employees, why does your work discriminate? And if your book club has more than 5 members and none have disabilities, why, again, what's going on here?
And why don't they feel safe enough to access this space?
Correct. And if you look around your life and you're truly honest with yourself, is there a person in your life with disability that is your equal? So I'm not talking about your friend's daughter who has a disability. I'm talking about a friend, a colleague, a mum at the park, you know, an equal. And if not, I have been challenging people that they have segregated their life from people with disability. And so what we can, you know, all the other types of segregation will take years and transitions and plans and government law changes. But the type of transition that isn't needed is people opening up their lives and purposely inviting a person with disability in.
And changing their mindset about disability, which comes with people like you actually discussing it and making it not a taboo, scary topic. Just going, we exist and that's fine. And different disabilities and different neurotypes and different variations of the human genome are supposed to exist and it's fine. Accept it.
But if your life has no person with disability, you have somehow made your life like inaccessible.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have to go out there and purposely look for a person with disability and invite them in. And that's work that able-bodied people have to do if they truly mean that they want inclusion and they want equality.
Yeah.
And what I mean by inviting them in is have a conversation with them. You might find that they love to read and the book club is the perfect spot to invite them in. Or their obsession might be AFL, and inviting them over for Friday night footy is a great, they're an encyclopedia of AFL knowledge. You have to start conversations with people with disability. If your work doesn't hire a person with disability and has more than 5 employees, talk to your boss.
Have that
Why
conversation.
don't you imply? Yeah, we need able-bodied people to step up. And so that's the bold kind of call out that I've been trying to have over the last few months, because it's the kind of change that can happen tomorrow. We don't have to wait years. And it's the kind of change that is cultural change. It can change incredible things for people with disability. But it requires able-bodied people to do the work.
Can you run for Prime Minister?
God. I don't know if you could pay me enough, Chloe.
Fair
can I say,
ballot.
I think our parliament is pretty segregated. How many women with disabilities are in our parliament? I think it would be around 0 openly.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, why is it that the Australian people wouldn't vote for a woman with disability? What is it about having a disability that makes you less capable of holding office? I think we need to question ourselves and our understanding of what disability is. Jordan Steele-Johns is an incredible advocate and incredible voice to have in the parliament, but he's in the Senate. He doesn't have a constituency that votes for him other than the people of WA. I think having an openly disabled and openly proudly disabled member in the House of Representatives would be incredibly hard. I actually think
everything.
It would change everything, and it would be so empowering for the disability community. But we have to also be really honest and say, would the disability be used against them in a campaign? And I think it would be.
So true.
And so putting that on one person to do, I think, is a really hard ask. Not to be pessimistic, but I think we need to challenge that.
Yeah, no, 100%. Elly, you are such a bold person. You are, first of all, incredible. Second of all, the person that we need to have at the forefront of this sort of stuff. I want to get you out everywhere. I need you on billboards. I need you not just on my podcast. I need you on everyone's podcast. I need you on every TV station.
Hey, as long as I can borrow some outfits if I'm going to be on billboards.
Done. I've got
your wardrobe is, yeah.
Done. I've got you. We'll meet up afterwards.
Hey, I'll do it all. I'll be completely nervous doing it all, but I'll do it all because people with disability deserve a seat at the table.
Absolutely. Like I said, nothing grows inside of a comfort zone, and you are complete and utter proof of that. Elly, before we finish up, I have got 3 questions that I would love to ask you. They're called the Boldly Me 3, and I ask them to every single guest on my show.
Ooh. Yes.
Okay.
Go.
Number 1 is, what is a song that never fails to make you feel happy?
I love Freedom by Beyonce.
Ooh.
And it's an incredible song. And it's more empowered probably than happy, but it's my pump up jam. And I love it. Freedom by Beyonce.
Amazing. Perfect answer. Number 2, what is one piece of advice that you would give your 13-year-old self?
to go easier on myself, to be kinder to myself.
Yeah.
That you're doing a good job.
I love that. That is so incredible. Do you know the amount of people that have said that exact answer of you're okay, you're doing a good job? And I think it showcases how much pressure we put on ourselves, and particularly disabled people from such a young age. We have so much pressure as kids.
Yeah. And so I hope the listeners out there who are 13 are hearing that there are many adults out there that are just wishing and could, if they could go back, would do anything to just be kinder on themselves.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just me, it's lots of people. If you can just do it today and maybe once again tomorrow, take the advice. I promise you it will make your life just that little bit easier. You are doing so well.
Yeah.
You are doing amazing no matter where you're at.
Yeah, I think a lot of people need to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay, the last one, completely different topic. If you could be any Disney character, who would you be and why?
See, my obsession's never extended to Disney. But I'm going to say The Little Mermaid because I could never not be a redhead. Is that terrible?
No, I think that's a perfect answer.
Yes. No. She found, you know, it's all the whole story is about her voice. So
yes, someone who didn't. Yeah, exactly. Someone who was finding her voice. I love that.
Yeah.
No, so, I think that's perfect.
Yes, the redhead and the voice.
Perfect. I think that's a brilliant answer. Elly, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for your passion. Thank you so much for fighting for this change for disabled people, because I know that you are going to be continue to being at the forefront of it, and I am so excited to see where else you go with this.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I could have talked to you for another hour. That's the kind of person you are. And thank you for all the work you're doing in the advocacy space. I just hope people listen to this and think, I have a voice. I have something to say. If you do, say it. It's so important.
Yes.
Yeah, you'll have our backing.
100% all the way. And the more people we have doing this, the better. There is never too many people advocating.
Never, ever.
What an incredible person Elly is. I feel like I've said this with every single one of my guests, but God, I could listen to her speak for hours. And I'm not kidding. Prime Minister now, immediately. She is such an incredible, such a bold person, and is sharing something that is so important to be talking about. If you don't know much about the NDIS, the National Disability Insurance Scheme, this is your call to action right now to go and Google it, and not to just to go and Google it, but to go and look at the NDIS through the eyes of disabled people like Elly, who are talking about it and talking about such an important topic that needs to be discussed. What an incredible person. Thank you so much for listening to Boldly Me. If you liked what you heard, make sure to rate and review the show on your podcast app if it lets you, and let a friend know as well. Most importantly, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and do whatever makes you happy. Bye!